Now, it's all well and good dynamically mounting at the command line, but what happens where we need this at boot time? That's where our etcfstab file comes in. I'm going to begin by saying, even though we are looking at persisting our mounts in the way they are at the moment will not persist. The LO setup command to link our disk file to device files is run manually. We would have to script the creation of that. But that doesn't stop us going through and taking a look at the fstab file. So we can begin with the cat command, short for concatenate, and take a look at /etc and fstab, our file system table. Now we have two entries in. At the bottom, they are not commented. The first one is just another way that we can use the UUID, looking at a special device file that represents the file system by its unique identifier. That's for our root file system. And then below this, we have our swap file. Now, this is a raw file, but as long as we haven't partitioned it up, we are able to use it directly. But this is for virtual memory or swap memory. Now, we have seen that using our lsblock command with the option -F, we're able to see the unique identifier of our file system. But we can also use a command called block ID. If I go through and look at that and point through to my dev loop 16p1 file, just add my password for a moment, we can see that we can see the label and the UUID. For the moment, I'm going to grab the UUID and just put it in my paste buffer, and we can add it through to our fstab file. So having copied it into memory, I'm now going to use sudo and nano, my text editor, and move into the fstab file. I can use escape and dot, and if I use it, in this case I used it twice, I can cycle through the different arguments that I have used. So escape and dot, and then escape and dot again. I'm just going to then paste into the nano text editor, and this is going to be my UUID. It's got a space at the beginning. I don't think that's going to cause any problems, but it's annoying me, so let me remove it. And then I can move back to the end of the line with Control and E. And we can say then that I want this device mounted into the MKT directory, /MKT. I'm going to need to, as root, create that directory. It doesn't exist at the moment. The file system that we are going to expect, I'm going to put XFS. I'm going to use default mount option, so putting in the word defaults. And then when we look at the final two options, the option here, 0, is for the dump FS. It's a very old backup system that nobody uses anymore, so you're never going to see this enabled. The last option I'm setting to 0, and this is for a file system check, but the file system check only applies to ext file systems and not XFS file systems. So I'm going to leave that disabled because it would have no effect if I enabled it. With that done, I'm ready to save my file. So that's just Control and X and enter on the file name. Now don't forget that I haven't created the directory yet. So we said we're going to mount it to the MKT directory. So sudo mkdir /MKT. So our mount target is in place. So we can clear our screen with Control and L. And then if I use sudo and mount -A, we look at everything in the etcfstab file that should be mounted that is not currently mounted. Now I get a little bit of a warning here saying that we've changed the fstab file and I might need to update systemd, but I'm not for this. So let's just get a little bit of focus on this. If I clear my screen and then go through and use ls-mkt, at last I see that file 1. I've missed you, file 1. Remember, we created this on our XFS file system earlier on in some of the demonstrations, but we can see that that has persisted. If I go back now and look at editing my fstab file, and again I'm using Control and R, looking for the word nano. Once we're in the file, I can move down to the bottom and I'm going to add a comment in front of UUID So the line becomes commented or ineffective because we don't want this being read at boot time. Okay, we can go ahead and save. And that is it. We have looked at persisting our file system mounts through the fstab file.